pay $4,400 for a Mitas Tudor Black Bay monochrome. You pay almost $10,000 for a Rolex Submariner. And a Royal Oak Extra Thin, it costs like $36,000. Cheap is not a word that applies.
The watch is often blurred. However, when you come to Guangzhou, you cannot see any problem just by looking at the appearance. What you need to be careful about is that the low quality movement inside will be sold at a high price.
My suggestion is you can try it first or buy it for a legal way. I'm Sean. See you next time.
95% of the world's watches are made here, including the one you're wearing right now. Many big brand watches are produced or sourced for parts from here. This place is Shenzhen City, the world watch capital city. And in Shenzhen, you must not miss this factory.
Asking y'all should receive. Tisa, where are the watch manufacturers? I did some digging and I found the watch manufacturers. There is a new scandal coming out of the luxury watch division. Listen, if you want to keep going to Rolex, if you want to keep going to AP and spending your money, go and do that. However, industry insiders are coming out, and I have their videos. People have even been fired from it for lifting the hood away from the
Rolex just did the unthinkable. And it has left the entire luxury watch community stunned. The world's most iconic watch brand suddenly slashed prices on several of its most famous models. And no, this isn't a regular seasonal sale or some end-of-year clearance. This was a direct reaction to something much deeper, something that challenged the very foundation of the brand. Chinese manufacturers have exposed what many are now calling one of the biggest pricing scams in the luxury market. They released information showing how similar watches could be made for a fraction of the cost. Videos began flooding the internet, revealing shocking comparisons between Rolex's supposed production value and the actual cost of making these watches. For decades, Rolex stood on a pedestal of exclusivity, precision, and heritage. But now, the truth is shaking that legacy to its core. People who once dreamed of owning a Rolex are now asking themselves if it's really worth it, or just hype wrapped in gold. The spark that ignited this firestorm came from leaked videos circulating online from large Chinese watch factories. These weren't just low-quality knockoffs. They were made with high-end machinery and skilled craftsmanship that closely mimicked the real thing. One factory revealed that their total cost to produce a watch nearly identical to a Submariner was under $500, including labor, materials, and packaging. That's when the internet exploded. More manufacturers stepped forward with similar claims, breaking down the cost of each component, from sapphire crystals to stainless steel, and showing just how little it took to make something almost indistinguishable from Rolex. Even the logistics costs didn't justify the kind of markup Rolex was demanding. The bold message behind it all was simple. You're not paying for craftsmanship, you're paying for branding. The transparency hit hard, and people began to feel like they had been taken for a ride. Watch experts, influencers, and every day, consumers started chiming in, and many of them agreed. Rolex may have been overcharging for years without anyone daring to question it. Soon after the backlash grew, Rolex quietly began changing their pricing strategy. There was no massive press release, no major advertising campaign, just updated dealer price sheets that spoke volumes. Overnight, some models saw price reductions of thousands of dollars. The Rolex Datejust, Daytona, and even some Oyster Perpetuals saw surprising price drops. The brand tried to frame it as part of an inventory realignment or a post-COVID price adjustment. But the timing was too precise. Analysts around the world began connecting the dots. This wasn't a coincidence, this was damage control. Online criticism and viral factory comparisons forced Rolex to react in a way they rarely ever have. For a brand known for maintaining high prices to protect their status, this was close to an admission of guilt. Some believe this move is the start of a new pricing model aimed at regaining customer trust. But others see it as a clear sign that Rolex is scrambling to hold on to its position in an increasingly informed and skeptical market. The response from watch lovers and collectors was as divided as it was intense. Some longtime buyers felt betrayed, especially those who spent tens of thousands believing they were investing in a timeless, appreciating asset. For years, owning a Rolex wasn't just about telling time. It was about flexing status, wealth, and exclusivity. Now, with prices, Suddenly dropping and production secrets going viral, some feel like they've been duped. On the flip side, many potential buyers are thrilled. For the first time, owning a Rolex seems financially possible to a much wider audience. Reddit, watch forums, and social media have become battlegrounds of opinions. One group calls it a long overdue market correction, while another says it's a brand in panic mode. TikTok is flooded with jokes like, Rolex got humbled by Alibaba, and memes comparing $500 dupes with $10,000 originals. Meanwhile, resellers are scrambling to adjust their inventory prices, uncertain of how the secondary market will react. The once solid status of Rolex is now more fragile than ever. But this isn't just about Rolex. It's a warning shot aimed at every luxury brand in existence. If even Rolex, the undisputed king of watches, can be rattled by growing transparency and the rise of affordable, high-quality alternatives, then no one is untouchable. The entire luxury ecosystem, from prestigious watchmakers like Audemars Piguet and Patek Philippe to elite fashion houses, is now watching this situation unfold with bated breath. What we're seeing is the slow collapse of a long-standing illusion that scarcity, branding, and heritage alone are enough to justify outrageous price tags. In an age where information travels at lightning speed and consumer awareness is sharper than ever, that illusion is growing harder to maintain. Younger consumers are leading the charge in this cultural shift. They no longer respond to the old formula of exclusivity and heritage without substance. Today's buyers demand authenticity, brands that offer actual value, ethical practices, and transparency in their pricing and production. They want to know where their money is going, what it's paying for, and whether the product truly reflects its cost. Flashy logos and vague stories about tradition no longer cut it. The internet has completely leveled the playing field. Reviews, breakdowns, exposés, and price comparisons are just a click away, and brands can no longer rely on controlled narratives and glossy advertisements to uphold their reputation. In this new environment, only those who adapt will survive. The fallout has already begun, and nowhere is it more visible than in the world of influencers and celebrities, the very people luxury brands have long relied on to uphold their image. Social media platforms, once flooded with posts showing off Rolexes as badges of success, are starting to look noticeably different. Some influencers who once flaunted their watches in nearly every post have gone radio silent. Others are deleting old content that was clearly part of paid promotions. A few have started speaking out, albeit subtly, about the darker side of luxury branding. Vague captions referencing fake flexes, real value, or overpriced clout are popping up more frequently. In rare but telling moments of honesty, some influencers have even admitted that their relationship with Rolex wasn't as organic as it seemed. Paid partnerships, gifted watches, and brand obligations were often hidden behind a carefully curated illusion of personal preference. Now, many of these same influencers are turning their attention to more affordable options. Watches that offer similar designs and quality at a fraction of the price. YouTube channels once devoted to Rolex reviews are now comparing luxury alternatives, dissecting the real cost of materials and craftsmanship, and asking hard questions about what buyers are actually getting for their money. One viral TikTok video summed up the shift perfectly. A user held up a $200 watch that closely resembled a classic Rolex design and said, "This dupe is 95% the same, and I saved enough to buy a car." That video alone sparked thousands of comments, with people debating whether the prestige of the Rolex name still justified the steep price difference. The reaction was overwhelmingly in favor of the more economical choice. It wasn't just about saving money. It was about rejecting the idea that value comes only from a brand's legacy. Luxury bloggers, too, are changing course. Many who once reviewed only top-tier products are now featuring smaller micro-brands. These newer watch companies often pride themselves on transparency, innovation, and a direct-to-consumer model that cuts out middlemen and inflated retail markups. Their messaging is clear. You don't need to spend 5 figures to own something well-made and stylish. In many cases, these brands are offering more in terms of quality, customer engagement, and honesty than the legacy giants ever did. As a result, The cultural prestige once monopolized by a few elite names is slowly dispersing. Even serious collectors, those most loyal to the old guard of luxury, are starting to reevaluate their stances. Many are questioning whether their high-priced collections will continue to appreciate or if the market is on the verge of correction. In forums and private groups, longtime enthusiasts are voicing concerns about resale values and shifting consumer perceptions. When watches become less about craftsmanship and more about marketing, the foundation of their worth becomes unstable. Some collectors are even selling off their pieces early, hoping to get ahead of a potential crash in value. The psychological shift underway is arguably more damaging than any financial one. Trust, once earned and held tightly by legacy brands, like Rolex, is starting to erode. For decades, the Rolex name stood as a shorthand for success, permanence, and excellence. But now that illusion is being tested in real time. The public is beginning to realize that branding and reality don't always align. And once that awareness sets in, it becomes nearly impossible to unsee. Consumers who once aspired to buy a Rolex are asking themselves what they really want: the watch, or the feeling the brand told them it would give. This isn't just a rough patch for Rolex, it's a cultural turning point for the entire luxury industry. The mechanisms that once upheld inflated pricing and untouchable reputations are being dismantled by scrutiny, transparency, and accessible competition. The brands that choose to evolve, to prioritize honesty, innovation, and genuine customer connection, might still thrive. But those that cling to outdated models of scarcity and illusion may soon find themselves irrelevant in a world that's simply moved on. As the dust settles, the big question on everyone's mind is whether this is the end of Rolex as we know it, or the beginning of a new chapter. The brand could very well bounce back by embracing transparency, innovation, and honest pricing strategies. They still have the heritage, the craftsmanship, and the fan base to rebuild. But it won't be easy. The world has changed, and with it, the expectations from luxury brands have evolved. Will Rolex adapt by introducing smarter pricing, better materials, or digital tech? Or will they stick to their traditional methods and risk falling behind? Other luxury watchmakers are watching this moment closely, using it as a case study for their own future decisions. Meanwhile, Chinese manufacturers are likely to dominate the mid-range market, offering stylish alternatives backed by social proof and solid value. The secondary watch market, once considered a haven for collectors, might collapse or shift into a completely new space, driven by transparency and data. Rolex is now standing at a major crossroads. The next steps they take could define the brand's legacy for the next 100 years. So what do you think? Was Rolex really hiding the truth this entire time? Do these price cuts make you trust the brand more or less? Would you finally buy a Rolex now that it's cheaper? Or are you walking away for good? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We're reading every single one. If you think the luxury industry needs to evolve with the times, hit that like button. Subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into fashion, tech, and cultural shifts that matter. The world of luxury is changing fast, and we're here to keep you updated with the truth. Rolex just got a wake-up call that they couldn't ignore. Now it's up to you to decide what true value means in today's world. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned, because more explosive stories are coming your way very soon.